Hey, shalom, shalom. All right, Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and great millstone. Shalom to you, Akim, pushing the work in truth and in sincerity. All right, so I want y'all to check this out. Y'all might have caught this, but if you haven't, here it goes. Just, Esau, of course, man, spilling out his pride, and you can't get no more proud than this. This Edomite mentions that he's a Native American, and it's a it's some wild shit to say, you know, knowing the history, of Edomite hatred towards the tribes, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right, this Edomite calls himself, and I'm sure a lot like him, they call themselves Native Americans, and that it excludes, the Gadites, all right, the so-called Native Americans who were slaughtered and murdered, you know, and that's just what Esau does, He continues to do, or I should say, he continues his pride in the earth without no regard for, history, no regard for anyone's feelings, and we know, as the scriptures say, which is comforting, the Lord is not mocked, that which a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So, and we know vengeance is mine, said the Lord. And, the only thing we can do is, have temperance and wait and long suffering. All right, so let me see.
Listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like. I should get the hell out.
Yes.
Why? I don't want you here. My first claim is.
Yeah, and, Esau, they get to determine who stays here, who goes, when they came and destroyed this place, destroyed the inhabitants of the Americas, they get to come and tell you who can stay and who can't. All right, so let me just rewind it back. All right, because this is pretty much outlandish. It's hurtful. It's complete disregard for other people, and that's just how Esau moves, man. So I'm gonna play this.
My family lineage is settlers from the 1500s. So
You don't look very Native American to me.
I am Native American. Whites
not.
are Native Americans. What are you
Sorry.
talking about?
You're not.
Look at him. While people were getting murdered back in the 1500s, while wars was going on, and whole Native American tribes, all right, so-called, all right, were being displaced and being chased and murdered, all right. They, settlers, if that's what you want to call them, all right. We call them fugitives because they were criminals who came from Europe. They went into parts of Australia, taking over, land, and they came to the Americas, of course, and these were Europe's bad crop of Edomites, all right. And what they do when they came to the Americas, they made life hell for those who already inhabited this place, which are, our people, the Gadites, all right, the Reubenites as well, the Iskarites, all right, all caught hell from this devil, all right. So during that time, they got to come here, and live off the land and do whatever they want, and this is, we coming to the point where, all of their, their thoughts, all of their feelings are, pretty much online for you to see, so you got, these Edomites who say, well, they were fighting against each other. The Native American tribes, so-called, were fighting against each other, right? So I guess that gives them the justification to come in, and move in, and destroy, as a third party, destroy, the inhabitants. All right, that's no justification, but we know all things are, of course, by way of prophecy. And of course, no one has respect or regard to the Lord's will. All right. So here, let's get a few precepts. Yeah, I want to start here, Sirach, 10th chapter. All right. Let's start at the 8th verse. Well, you know what? We started the 7th verse. All right. It says, pride is hateful before the Most High and man. All right. Okay. And the Most High hates it. Men hate it. All right. Nobody likes anyone proud. Okay. Because it's demeaning. It's a superiority complex. All right. And nobody likes to deal with that shit. And Esau is the most proud. And that's why, by way of a, miracle, the Lord's going to bring his wrath upon him. Finally, because, Esau ain't doing nothing for nobody in the world but himself, And even with them, being as selfish as they are, they still destroying the earth, No one can enjoy this place except for them. And it's sheer selfishness, and it's pure hatred is what you see. A complete disregard for life and others, all right? And the Lord doesn't like that, right? It says, and by both doth one commit iniquity. So you proud in the eyes of the Most High and proud in the eyes of men, right? It's iniquity. It's still wickedness, okay? Because common law says what? You're supposed to respect your neighbors. You're supposed to honor the relationships that you have, And Esau didn't honor anything, okay? And still to this day, all right? But we told you that he was going to show his horns. He was going to show that he was a devil. And the pure hatred is what they're showing everybody. So verse 8, because of unrighteous dealings, right? Injuries and riches got by deceit. You see? And this is the history of the so-called white man. All right? Unrighteous dealings. Okay? So they dealt unrighteously. All right? They did things, in wickedness, in pure malice, malignant hearts, to destroy and take things of others. All right? Okay? This is injuries, all right? You injured, you murdered, you raped, right? Okay, that's the history of the so-called white man, all right? And riches got by deceit, all right? And that's what Esau accumulated, riches. You have what they call, because he mentioned that, his people were settlers and he's a Native American. Well, you had what they call head rights. A lot of Edomites would identify themselves as Native Americans and literally take over the land of, the Gadites, the so-called North American Indian. All right, and they would take their land, and of course the land is riches. It's a resource. Okay, so they did it many ways. Well, one of those things is what? Head rights. Let's see here. Let's ask Chat Jupiter. All right. It's like that's what I call Chat GPT. Head rights. All right. Not headlights, but head rights. All right. let's see what it gives me, you know. And hopefully I said the term right. There we go. It says the term head rights refers to a system originally used by European colonists, to distribute land, particularly in colonial Virginia, to settlers or those who paid for others to immigrate. But when you mention head rights and Native Americans' land being taken, you may be referring to a specific historic context involving Native American land allotment and theft. There we go. Yep. Especially related to the Osage Nation in Oklahoma during the 20th century. All right. And that's very recent. What were head rights in the Native American context? For Native Americans, especially the Osage Nation, head rights were shares of tribal mineral wealth, particularly oil revenues that were assigned to individual members of the tribe after their land was allotted under federal policy. Background: the allotment era and the Osage, Dawes Act. The U.S. government broke up communal tribal lands and gave individual land allotments to Native Americans. Surplus land was then sold to white settlers. This led to massive native land loss. So they took it and sold it. Okay. Osage Allotment Act 1906. It says the Osage tribe in Oklahoma agreed to divide land among tribal members, but instead of giving away mineral rights, those were held in common, and royalties from oil, gas, etc. Were paid as head rights to tribal members. It says, why was this a problem? The Osage had become extremely wealthy from oil. Their head rights were inheritable but could not be sold to non-Osage. Yet white guardians and schemers found ways to manipulate, marry into, or even murder Osage individuals to gain control of those rights. So there you go. And they made a movie about it. I forget the name of it. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a few famous actors are in it. And I've yet to, watch it. I watched first 10 minutes, first 20 minutes of it, but haven't really gotten into it. And in fact, I might have to anyway, just to, go into that history. But, the evidence is there, and the scriptures are on point. It points straight at Esau. So the Osage Reign of Terror in the 1920s, dozens of Osage people were murdered or died under suspicious circumstances. These crimes were committed to seize control of their head rights. This era was one of the first major investigations handled by the newly formed FBI. The outcome: though some culprits were convicted, the U.S. government never fully protected the Osage or compensated them adequately. See, head rights continue to be passed on, but over time, many were fractioned, stolen, or lost. And this pretty much fulfills the prophecy, man. So in summary, head rights in the Native American context represent a tragic example of how native wealth, especially in oil-rich areas, was exploited. The U.S. government's policies and legal structures allowed white individuals to manipulate or forcibly obtain land and wealth from Native Americans. The Osage Reign of Terror, is one of the most well-documented and devastating instances of this exploitation. So just one of many of the examples over the years, over the centuries, how the so-called white man has, pretty much beat out the tribes. And to, as the scriptures see, as you see here in the scriptures, Salaki. Ecclesiastes Ecclesiastes 10 and 8, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit. Okay, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So what we're witnessing now with the downfall of this society is a translation, or it's being translated, right? It says from one people to another. Okay, and ultimately America, well, it's not going to be inhabited by anyone because of the blood that was spilled here. This land is defiled. Now, what does it mean for the so-called North American Indian, which are the Gadites? All right, not just the North American Indians, all right, who are the Gadites, but you got the Reubenites, all right, which the world, they're known to the world as the Seminole Indians, all right, and you can't forget about the Issacharites, the biblical name being Issacharite, but the name that they're known for are what, Mexican, all right, okay. Right, in other tribes, all right. Ultimately, what's going to happen is that the Lord is going to restore them and fight for their cause, all right, all right. And the cause, or I should say, He's going to fight for a remnant's cause, all right, because not all of them, all right, are going to be saved. All right, only a small portion. All right. Okay, so Sirach 10 and 9. It says, "Why is earth and ashes proud?" That's the Esau. There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man, and that's what Esau is. They coveting after even your name. The name of Native American. They're trying to covet that. Okay, because it hide it. And they get to rewrite history, and pretty much muzzle everybody else out, And now, these tribes are pretty much, in these people are long forgotten, but they're not forgotten, because prophecy said they will overcome at the last. All right, and we know that the words of the Lord are sure. All right, pure and sure, as I say, as the scriptures say, firstly, all right. So it says, "For such an one setteth his own soul to sell, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels." And that's right. Meaning they had no pity. Meaning they had no real concern, all right, for the plight of the Israelites who have lost, or so-called Native Americans who have lost land, who have lost inheritance, who have lost life, right? Okay, so it's not a more wicked thing than those type of people. These people, these Edomites, all right. So let me see here. So it says, verse 10, it says, "The physician cutteth off a long disease," all right, "and he that is today a king tomorrow shall die." So ultimately their fate is what? Is death. Okay, because all they have brought is death. And Ezekiel 35:5 goes into that. "Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and thou hast spilled the blood of the children of Israel. Since thou hatest not blood," all right, "blood shall pursue thee," as it says. Okay, so the physician cut off a long disease, because the so-called white man has been absolutely nothing, all right, more than a disease in the earth. He's like a virus, and everywhere he goes, he takes over just like a virus. He spreads himself, right? Okay, it says, "And he that is today a king tomorrow shall die." Right? "For when a man is dead, he shall inherit creeping things, beasts, and worms." And that's what's going to happen. All right, the beginning of pride is when one departed from the Most High, and that's what Esau has done. They don't seek after the Lord, nor do they reverence his laws. All right, and you're supposed to reverence the Lord's laws, because these are the laws, all right, which Esau is a hypocrite. They say this nation is a Judeo-Christian, has a Judeo-Christian upbringing, right? But they never employed any of the laws when it comes to dealing with the neighbors, all right, or anyone outside of your nation. You're still supposed to deal fairly, right? You're supposed to deal fairly with your slaves. You're supposed to deal fairly, but they've not dealt fairly. They have not. The scriptures say they cast my words behind them. Okay? And that's what Esau has done. All he's done is cast the Lord's words behind him. All right? And ultimately, his ways are going to catch up to him. All right? Which here, Psalms 50 and 16, but unto the wicked, God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? That's right. And they're not declaring the Lord's statutes. It says, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth. Right. They say in there Judeo-Christians. They calling themselves Christians. All right. Latter-day Saints, or, whatever, okay, Puritans and all of this stuff. But they honor not the Most High. Their mind is not towards God. Their mind is to completely wipe out life, all right? Or to take everything at the expense of others, lives, all right, and resources and so on and so forth, all right? So it says, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, which is this book, these prophecies, right? Seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee. So in this, Esau is, self-appointed him, or appointed himself as, a man of God, one to be, honored, and, and he has taken the Bible and put it in his court systems and used it as a measurement of legitimacy, all right, or or validation. And now you've done something spiritually. Well, you have to take on these certain customs because you pretty much appointed yourself and put yourself in that position to do it. So you're supposed to keep it, all right, but you didn't, all right. Seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee, when thou sawest a thief, then thou contendest with him, and hast been partaker with adulterers. All right, thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Right, that's Esau. All right, thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son, and that's the Israelites. Okay, and that's what Esau has done. All right, they cast us down from our excellency continually, and they call us the bywords and proverbs, and they try to destroy us, all right, psychologically, all right, and they've put us in positions in the world now where we are not able to advance, all right, but we know ultimately he's a whooping stick. He's the Lord's sword, all right. So Ezekiel 35:5, and I'm not going to be too much more longer. All right, Ezekiel 35:5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, that's Esau, all right, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the sword, all right, and a few examples of that when you look into history, the wars that consisted from, starting from Cristobal Colon, and, from his, time that he came over here to the Americas to conquer and to enslave, right, all the way up until now with the systems, the different systems that they employ to keep the nation of Israel, all right, as a prey, all right, constantly being attacked, all right, in many different ways, whether it's through policy, whether that's through the physical, all right. So, and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the sword, All right, in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. You see? All right. Therefore, as I live, said the Lord Yahweh power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. And thou sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. You see? Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate. That's America. Thermonuclear missiles. Totally eradicating this place. Every living thing in this place. All right. And cut off from it him that passeth out, and him that returneth. All right. So one more precept. Here. All right. And this ultimately, this is what's going to happen. You know, with all this proud talk and all of, and ultimately it's leading, it's the Lord hears your cries. All right. And I'm you know, this ain't gonna be the last one. I got one more I just thought of. Genesis 49:19. Gad, all right, a troop, all right, shall overcome him. That troop was Esau. All right. Right. But he shall overcome at the last. All right. At the last what? At the last days. All right. Gad, which is the so-called North American Indian, is going to overcome in the last days. All right. So Psalms. All right, because Esau is completely almost eradicated. You know, the Gadites. All right. It's almost taking us out, but you know, they can't take us out because of the mercies of the Lord. Psalms 12:1, it says, help, Lord, for the godly man ceaseth, for the faithful fail from among the children of men. They speak vanity, everyone with his neighbor, with flattering lips, and with a double heart do they speak. All right, here's the point here. The Lord Yahweh shall cut off all flattering lips. Those are the smooth talkers. Those are the people that appease, you know, that appease men with their smooth talking. All right, their big words, their comforting words. It says, in the tongue that speaketh proud things. And who is speaking most proudly? Esau, the so-called white man. No one else more proud than he is. Right? Who have said, with our tongue will we prevail, our lips are our own, who is Lord over us. And that's where they mistaken, because your lips are not your own. And all that you have said, all that you have done has been marked. Right? Meaning, in other words, it's been sought out, it's been seen. All right. The eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding all the ways of man, as the scriptures say in Sirach, the 23rd chapter, the 19th verse, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So, verse 5, for the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, said the Lord Yahweh of hosts. All right. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. Right. And the Lord is going to set us in safety. All right. So, Lord willing, this lesson was, all right, edifying. Just wanted to touch on that, you know, the proud ass Edomites. You know, Lord willing, man, you know, Lord continue to, you know, move on our enemies and ultimately, you know, bring forth that salvation. Until next time, I say shalom.